George Smith from Mobile Works, Santa Maria, California. My wife's a speech pathologist, and George knows this, but she has a full-time job with me. Okay, I tell people, if you want perfect grammar or perfect enunciation, hire an English teacher. But if you want to learn how to sell, hire Dell. But anyway,
I hired Dell.
yeah. So tonight, George brought to my attention, hey, Dell, how do you unequal the playing field? And we were taught, or, a long time ago, all things being equal, they're going to buy it from the cheapest price. So how do we unequal things, George? You want to give your input, thoughts on that? And I'll share with you how I learned this.
Well, the customer can't see anything over the phone, so you got to get them into the store. And then you also got to be able to explain the differences between some of the benefits that you have. So some of those things would be battery chargers on every car, the floor mats, the steering wheel covers. Those are all things that the customer doesn't see over the phone. But when they get there, they ask questions. Hey, why is the hood open on every car? Why is there a battery charger on my car? But also some of the things that we want to talk about is, sometimes it's MECP certified. And as we sometimes will say, so what, big deal. But that is a big deal. You just got to be able to explain it and the benefit, why it's a big deal and what it is for your shop. Also, some of us use plotters for window tint. What's the selling advantage? We're going to discover all these kind of things tonight. How do we make things unequal on the playing field? Why are we better? Why do we spend thousands of dollars on a plotter? Why do we buy the program and spend it every month? Help us break that down, Dell, and give us a good logical answer to explain really good detail to everybody.
Well, first of all, I like to change the names of things. You mentioned the battery charger. You mentioned, the MVCP certification. Now, I'm not going to say we're going to change MVCP certification, but if we're going to talk about a plotter, I'm not going to call it a plotter. Now, Dell, why? That's a great question. The reason for it is what I found out is when I educated my clients and they went to another shop and they go, do you use a plotter? And whether they did or they didn't, they would say, yeah, we do. Well, I used to sell the wood that we use, and it was MDF, and they'd go to other stores. Do you guys use MDF? Yeah. Well, actually, they use particle board, but after they put the carpeting over, so my gears started turning. All things being equal, they're going to go to the cheapest place. Number one. Two, experience is never our best teacher. Evaluated experience is our best teacher. So what I did is I started changing things. So we'll break down like the battery charger. So, what I would do is I'm not afraid. Hey, have you been anywhere else? Now, let me talk about some selling laws real quick. Number one, whoever asks the questions leads the conversation. Number two, whenever you get in trouble, ask questions. Number three, if you say it, they'll doubt it. If they say it, they'll believe it's true. All you got to do is get them to say it. And so I'm a stickler for another selling law. Every word matters. Every word you say matters. Every word the way they say matters. Every word the way you say matters. Every word the way they say matters. Every word matters. And so when you understand these things, for example, if I show a battery charger like George talked about, have you been anywhere else? So George, you're them. George, have you been anywhere else?
Yeah.
And did they show you what I'm showing you, like this battery charger?
No, they didn't show me anything in their shop.
Why do you think that is?
Maybe they don't do cars on a battery charger. Maybe their shop's a mess.
So do you want to take your 2019 Honda to a place that isn't using a battery charger and the place is a mess, George?
Not really. But what's the use of the battery charger?
Well, that's a great question because once a battery loses its total charge, you can charge it back up, but it's never going to come back to the way it was before. And the thing about it is, George, is when it finally dies on you, it's usually at the most inconvenient time. So, for example, you get out there and it's cold in the morning and your car doesn't start. Oh, I bet your boss is real, or your customers are real pleased because you're not showing up in time. Is that right, George?
He's really impressed.
See what I'm saying? And,
Yeah,
and why would you want to pay money for that, George?
I don't.
And could you see why we're better?
Yes,
Would it be worth a few dollars more to you, George, to know that
yes,
your car is taken care of? It just makes
yes,
sense, doesn't it, George?
yes, it
So,
does.
so did I say the other stores suck?
No,
Did I mention them by name?
no,
I don't have to because I know they're not going to talk about it. And see, the other thing is like MECP certification. Now, Dell, how would you sell that, George? We go to great lengths. In fact, it costs us money to get our technicians certified. Unfortunately, in our industry, it isn't required by the government. Now, we spend this money to make sure that everyone that's working on your vehicle, whether it's MECP certified or it's window treatment certified, is going to be doing the job and doing it better than anyone else. Now, this costs us money and it takes us time, but you're worth it, aren't you, George?
yes, I am.
And did they talk to you about these things, George?
No, they don't,
Well, why do you think they don't, George?
because they're not certified or they don't have the proper training, and so they
So,
don't go talk about it. So, are they equal? No,
no. So, would you want to take your vehicle to 2019 Honda Accord, George, to a place that's not certified
no,
or not trained?
no,
Training isn't free,
no, it's not.
but it's worth it, especially when
Yes,
they're working on your vehicle, isn't it, George?
yes.
The plotter. I was thinking about this, George, on the way, home, and I was thinking about, what, our window treatments. We have a machine that digitally cuts it out to the precise measurements of your vehicle. Of course, other places they like X-Acto blades and stuff like that. They cost, I don't know, $2 or $3 for the blade. However, if you got any rubber and they slip and they cut your rubber, it takes a chance of either whistling or water coming into your car. It also scratches the window. So if you go to resale or something like that, do you think that it appreciates the value of your vehicle or depreciates, George?
Depreciate.
Did they talk to you about these things, George?
No, they do not.
Why do you think they didn't, George?
Maybe they don't have a plotter. Or
I
they
didn't
hand
call
cut
it a plotter. Remember? See,
computer.
I did. Right. Digitally, see, I'm not going to call it a plotter. See, I don't want to use something that my client can go somewhere else and point blank ask them about that. Does that make sense, George?
That makes a lot of sense. So it's a computer.
Generated. It's a
Computer generated.
computer generated design specifically for your vehicle to the precise, exactly what you need. There's no guesswork, George.
Perfect.
See. So the other thing is people talk about, well, we solder all our connections. So the guy goes to another store, or do you solder all your connections? Well, what I teach is I would call it Mobile Works way of making connections. I'm
Mobile
not
Works
gonna
connections.
I'm not gonna call it solder. And then what I do is, you got T-taps, you got butt connectors, or some. I've even seen people where they use the connectors for the home. What are they, twist nuts or whatever?
Yeah.
And what you want to do is you want to set up your example, right? You say, listen, we're doing a security system on your vehicle. If you get up underneath the dash, which one looks like it belongs and which one does it look like doesn't belong? Can you pull on the one that doesn't belong? George, that's how fast it took a thief to get past your alarm system. Now, can you now listen? Ours take longer, and time is money, isn't it, George?
Yes.
But see, if you do it If you don't do it this way and somebody gets under there, you just wasted all your money, didn't you?
Yes.
What's your deductible, George? Do you know?
500.
So if you had 500 plus the 200 that they charge, that's 700. We're only at 399. You would have saved $300. Plus, we're not even going to go into the detail of making a police report, dealing with the insurance company, going back and forth, back and forth. I mean, have you ever had a vehicle stolen before, George?
Yes.
It's not much fun, is it?
It wasn't. Pain
Is
in the
it
butt.
worth it? Is it worth a few dollars more to do this right to you, George?
Yes.
That's how I upsell. Now, another way is I don't want to talk about brands. We're the brand. We're the
Yes,
number one brand, baby.
we are.
Mobile Works, Delos International, Salt Mastery. See, we're the brand. And with our brand, we have, they can't shop it.
Right.
So
Telling us.
when I go into facilities, I'll take pictures, and they'll have a bunch of different manufacturers' signs up, and I'll take pictures, and I'll ask my wife, "Honey, do you know the name of this store?" Well, they'll have more of the brands that they carry versus themselves, and she'll say, "Well, isn't that a blah 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 store?" I go, "No, it's not." You see, I was taught by a good friend of mine, Marcel. He said, take a picture of your store and then take a look at that picture and analyze what you see. And if you don't see your brand, which he learned from me because I had my logo on 100, everywhere you look, you saw my logo. George, I wanted my logo burnt on your eyeballs when you went to bed at night. And see, and when I talked about my brand, we at Delos International do da 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 da. Can you see why this is better? Are you interested in better? Tell me, George, if you're ever going to, Honda's one of the number one stolen cars. If you're ever going to do anything to protect your vehicle, your Honda, and have it done right, when do you think it'd be the best time?
Now.
Well, George, unfortunately, we're booked up because everybody wants to get a security system that we have to offer, wants to get their window treatments that we have to offer, wants to get,
Right. Everything.
See, people hurt, George, and they want to do what everybody's doing because there's safety in numbers. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So see, how do we unequal the playing field? Well, we educate, but see, in the old days, like I said earlier, I educated. And then what happened, George, is they'd go somewhere else, and the other store lied to them. So let's say we do this, and we don't make the sale, because it happens. I'm not going to say we're going to get everyone, but we are going to get the best ones, okay? And this is how I'd handle that. I'd just say, George, now we talked about a lot of things were important, didn't we?
Yes.
And would you be willing to wager $1 or a bottle of water, George?
Money. Benjamins.
Yeah, well, I said $1 or a bottle of water, but I'll go for 100. I'll go for 1,000. Okay. So George, I bet you, if you don't mention all the benefits and advantages I shared with you today, when you go somewhere else, they won't mention it either. Do you want to bet, George?
No.
Why not?
Because I've gone through the Dell training. And it does work.
Yeah.
And it does
Well,
work very well.
If my wife was here, she would tell everybody, "Hey, don't bet him. He only bets it unless he knows he's going to win." You see, I have a saying: I play for fun, but I don't have any fun unless I win. And I have more fun when my kids, or should I say, my clients, win. Because see, the goal is how can I increase your effectiveness? Because it costs at minimum $10 for somebody to come in your facility. And then if they go somewhere else to buy, man, that's adding insult to injury. And see, in my town, within 3 miles, George, there was 8 other stereo shops. And I mean, there was like a stereo shop for every 10,000 people.
Yes,
so
we drove down that street.
So I had to be better than everyone else. You see, and I wasn't the cheapest in town. I didn't even want to be cheaper. George, where I live now, one of my shops was a half mile away. Caddy Corner, there was a place for $39 alarm install, $39 CD player. And so people would come in my store. You go, you got anything $39? I go, our tax is more than $39. Come here, let me show you why. Come here, let me show you why. Come here, let me show you why. You see, and then I would show them. And then I would take them on the tour and I'd sell our facility. So I had the magazine articles set up, I had trophies. But see, what I learned is if I showed somebody a magazine article, a lot of times they would say, well, you know, we're not looking to do something like that. So, George, my gears started turning. How am I going to evaluate this? Oh, I understand. However, isn't it nice to know the same people that did that centerfold in that magazine is going to be the ones working on your 2019 Honda Accord?
Yep.
See, and then I'd show them trophies, and I'd show them the trophies. And I say, you know, you might not be looking to compete. However, isn't it nice to know that the people that did that are going to be doing the installation on your 2019 Honda Accord, George? You see, one thing I've learned, I'm going to refer them by name and I'm going to refer to their vehicle as much as possible. Because I don't care where they go, unless I train them, they're not going to do that. See, you know, well, I can't get into that one. Things have changed. I'm trying to be politically correct, but it doesn't always work out, George.
Nope.
So these things that I just shared with you, George, I know I've shared with you in the past. Have you been diligent with them, or have you been so-so?
And and that's why my business goes up and down. So that's why we're doing some of these classes and refreshing and always training, always
Always
training.
train. You know,
And that's all we're trying to do with these is to teach everybody else how to get the good information. And I'm gonna tell you
and
guys,
utilize it.
utilize it, but pick up the phone, get Dell involved. You want to see your store increase? You know, we're heading some of those winter months, and sometimes it slows down. Now's the time.
Well, you know, I appreciate that, George. You're making me blush, man. I almost turned as red as your shirt.
Yeah. So
But
tell me a little bit about Latour. I mean, that's another thing that we do. How do you explain that? So you've been to my store. Explain Latour to them.
well, first of
Really a
all,
store.
when first of all, when they come in, when they call me on the telephone, I take notes, and I set up the free consultation. I see them pull in. I know who it is, so I review my notes right then. Then what I do is I come outside, and I would say, like, you know, a few episodes ago, I'd say, George, over the telephone, you share with me that you used to have a 2004 white Honda Accord, but then you went to the black 2019. Is that right? And so
Yes.
we talked about 3 weeks ago, wasn't it, George? And then we
Yes.
talked about getting your windows, you know, treated, and we talked about some other things. And George, did I leave anything out?
We left out the remote start.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Yes.
you got it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. Because you have to have that because you didn't want to get on a hot car with your black seats and your black paint job. Is that right?
That's right.
See.
Also talked about paint protection film.
Mm-hmm. And because on your 2004, you had a few dings, didn't you, George?
Yes.
And
Feedback.
every time you walk by that car, they talked to you. Isn't that right?
Yep. It's one thing you always see, the first scratch or the first part of it.
Yeah. So if we could help eliminate that, I mean, wouldn't that be awesome?
Yes.
Now, George, if I could do those three things that we just talked about, and I could do it within your budget or the numbers made sense, would there be anything stopping you from taking care of your baby as soon as possible?
My wife.
Your wife, does she know you're here?
No. Don't tell her.
For $100, George, I'll make sure she doesn't know. Did she go with you when you bought your car?
No.
So why would I ask that question right there, George?
Just to overcome any objections so we don't give out our best price now and know that we're going to get a rejection at the end. So it's better to handle it now and try to overcome it all.
Right,
Who's in the buying process of this and getting the authorization?
and see, when George said, he didn't take his wife to buy the car. Man, the car is what, 30 grand? Shoot, with any luck, we'll be at 3 or 4 grand, right, George?
Yeah.
But see, that's the goal. But see, if he tells me later on, well, I said I'd check my wife, I go, George, you didn't do it when you bought your car, man. Who wears the pants in that family? But see, I have to have that rapport with him to be able to do this. And there's a process. And once we start joking around and stuff, I remember when I went to New Orleans, I always get their name, use their name exactly how they give it to you. But shoot, the guy's name was this long. And so I looked at him and go, man, instead of me trying to blow up your name, is there a nickname that you like that you go by too? Because a lot of times, boys will be boys. If they feel like, they call you something, man, don't call me that. Well, shoot, you just blew it right there because they're going to start calling you that all the time, aren't they, George?
Yes.
And I've been jacking with you, huh, George?
A little. Yes.
How many times have you said yes?
Too many. You got me saying the yes like we did on our last call.
Mm-hmm. Because the more yeses we get, the minor agreements we get, the more likely you're going to get the major agreements, which is the sale. Yes. Now, I'm bobbing my head at everybody and tell me, George, if you go back a little bit on this video, you'll see George wasn't bobbing his head, but once I started bobbing my head, what happens is people come by it naturally. And the thing about it is once they do this, it makes it difficult for them to do that. It just kind of feels weird. So with that said, we're going to talk about the Yes Momentum, but I got a selling card game that's coming out, and it's going to teach you, to listen and how to lead the conversation. It's going to teach you how to get as many yeses as possible. It's going to teach you how to get them to say it. So, because remember the selling laws, if you say it, they doubt it. If they say it's believe it's true, all you got to do is get them to say it. Now, another thing I like to do is mirror their answers. So when I went back to George and I said, George, why do you think they didn't do that? I don't care what he says. I'm going to come back. Well, you wouldn't want to go to a place that would you? See, I not only want to go for yeses, I want to go for nos. And I'll give you another example, George, since we're on it a little bit, is I'd have 2 pictures of 2 vehicles we did. Both of the systems totaled up to $10,000. But one system was far superior than the other system, George. So I'd go down, George, both these guys spent 10 grand. Do you have any questions? And they would always say, well, why is the one so much better than the other? I go, because this guy with the one that's not so good went to 4 other stores before he came here. This guy over here, he came to our store and he just did it all right the first time. Then I would point to the picture that's bad. I go, you do not want to make the same mistake that guy made, do you, George?
No. See?
So whoever asks the questions leads the conversation. Whenever you get in trouble, ask a question. If you say they doubt it, if they say it, they believe it's true, all you got to do is get them to say it. And see, that's what I focused on is questions. Because, George, selling is nothing more than asking the right questions with focused listening. And then I had one, golly, man. He goes, Del, you reverse engineer all your processes. And I go, that's right. It is reverse engineer. Because, see, just like in the selling card game, George, close your eye for a minute. Okay, I'm going to pick out a card. Let's see if they can see it. There we go. Right there. Now, I know, go ahead, George, you can open his eye. I know where I want to take them. Okay. Based on qualification, right? So now what I'm going to do is we're going to play this game. And I said, now, of course, every time I get a yes, I get $1 million Dell bucks. Now I know what you're thinking. What are Dell Box? Oh, it's that guy. My mug. You get my mug. So, George, you are familiar with the deck of cards, aren't you?
Yes.
And in that deck of cards, there's two different colors, isn't that right?
Yes.
And wouldn't those two colors be black and
Red.
who said it?
I did.
Then it's got to be true. Now, between the black and the red, George, can you name one of those colors for me, black or red?
Red.
Fantastic. And of course, we take away the red. What are you left with, George?
Black.
Who said it?
I did.
Now, in the black suits, we're going to have spades and clubs. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you name one of those suits for me, please, George? Spades or clubs?
Spades.
And we're going to take those away. What are you left with, George?
Clubs.
Fantastic. You're batting 1,000, huh, George?
Woo! Yes.
Now, in the clubs, we're going to have face cards and number cards, correct?
Yes.
And can you name one of those groups for me, please? Face cards or number cards?
Numbers.
Numbers. Fantastic. Now, we're going to have even and odd. Isn't that right, George?
Yes.
Can you name one of those groups for me, please? Even or odd, George?
Even.
Even, and we take them away. What are you left with, George?
Odds.
Who said it?
I did.
Now, in the odds, we're going to have a 3-5 and a 7-9. Is that correct?
Okay.
Okay, and can you name one of those groups, either the 3-5 or the 7 or 9, George?
7 or 9.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, you're doing really good, aren't you? Now,
Yes.
between the 7 and the clubs and the 9 of clubs, can you name one of those for me, please?
7
Of clubs?
of clubs.
Isn't that the
Let
7 of club?
Let them. Hook, line, and sinker.
Because once they start saying yes, it makes it difficult to say no. Now, another selling law is never argue a fight with them. Well, this other shop said blah, 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 there's the best and this and that and the other. I go, I heard that too. But you know what? After doing some research, can you keep an open mind, George?
Yes. On a book.
See, I'm going to go right through it. So, what were your takeaways, sir?
Learn how to lead. Learn how to lead them down the path that you need. It's asking the questions, and when you get in trouble, to ask the questions. And I also learned how to unequal the playing field.
Because all things being equal, they're going to go to the cheapest place. And we don't want to be the cheapest place. Do we, George? So anyway, anyone, you need any help, there's my email address, DEL, just like the computer, but only one L, HELPUS@gmail.com. If you share this video, it'll put you in for a drawing where you'll have a 1-hour session with me, and you can pick my brains if there's something that, just haunts you. Because believe me, I was haunted a lot. I had to exercise the demons. But most of those, were my thought process. But, I play for fun, and I don't have any fun unless I win. And I win more than I lose. And my goal is to make you a winner too. George, I want to thank you, sir, for, hey, listen, he came to do this instead of, spending time with his wife, and it's her birthday, but I'm not going to say what year it is because I don't want to get in trouble because I know he's in trouble for doing this.
No.
One person in trouble. No, actually, she's a sweetheart. And
just buy pizza. That's what she wanted, her favorite place.
Yep. And so anyway, be blessed, everybody. George, thank you, sir. I love you, man.
Love you too.
Have a good evening, everybody, and we'll see you soon on the next episode of Unequal the Playing Field, or we'll come up with another one. But if you'll take what I'm sharing with you and make it you will do better than before you watch this video. I guarantee it. Good
Train to be a
night.
professional. All right. Good night.